Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to our Inside Admissions. Today, I'm so pleased to have Chapman University. Carlos Leyva is here. I've known him. He's been on before, so I really appreciate him coming back and giving us some updates about the unique academic and student life activities that's going on at Chapman. My name is Liz Laporte, and I am the founder of Porte Education Advising. And for the past 12 years, I've been helping students, their families, all throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. But I'm really happy to be able to, offer this information to everybody. There's so many details involved in the college admission process. So enjoy the conversation. And again, Carlos, thank you so much and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. Nice
Yeah,
talking to you.
it's great talking to you too again. Yeah, I really enjoyed our last conversation. So let's start out. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and your involvement with Chapman, which sounds like you really do know what you're talking about. So why don't you kick us off?
Absolutely. Well, hi everybody. Just as a refresher, my name's Carlos. I'm one of the senior admission counselors with Chapman. This is year number 6 for me working with the team. But I was also a student there. So I've kind of known Chapman for about a decade already. And even prior to that, I had family that attended Chapman. So it's kind of run through our family. It's in our blood. So we kind of bleed that Panther pride. And so kind of what I've come to know Chapman to be is this very comprehensive institution that allows students to really explore not only their career passions, but even side passions. So, kind of using my own personal experience and also the experience of some other students that are attending right now. I was a STEM student. I took computer science all the way for the 4 years, but I was also a music student on campus. So, being able to combine two very different passions of mine but into one overall education was a really big deal for me. And I think that's something that a lot of students do appreciate that come to Chapman and see what the campus has to offer because you're not always going to want to pigeonhole yourself into the one thing that you're going to create a career out of. You want some things that allow you to make your experience much more unique. So that way, if you're looking at one particular position or a certain company, you can also diversify where you're going within that company. It may not just be one position. And I think that's something that a lot of professors do emphasize, whether it be through not only the classroom experience, but what you get outside of it. On campus, students are really a push to experience things on campus, whether it be research, volunteering positions, internships, or things off campus as well. So students are not only getting that hands-on experience and approach while they're in the classroom, but they're also getting that and encouraged to do that through our networking opportunities, whether they find it through our career office or whether it's through a professor themselves. So I think that's something that I've seen Chapman be very consistent on since I was a student, but I think they've adapted more to the times, especially with us coming from the pandemic and finding more ways to network with companies, organizations that are not only just here in California, but across the United States and around the world as well.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. So Chapman, I believe it's about 7,000 undergrads. Is that right? 7,000 around
About 7,300.
7,300 private school in Orange, about 40 minutes away south of LA. And so it's the size is pretty comparable to other Catholic affiliated universities, which of course are different. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes you sort of unique in comparison to those other 7,000 student population universities?
Yeah. I feel like with Chapman, it always starts with, excuse me, my neighbor's dog's kind of
So
going
that's
crazy out here. But I think the first part in kind of looking at the differences between us and other medium-sized institutions is always starting with the location. And you kind of mentioned it, Liz, already, like where we're located. I feel like with Chapman's location, we're very centralized in Southern California, right in the middle of kind of this heart where students are finding opportunities north of them, but also south of them, whether that be more so for social exploration, getting to know people, finding communities that can really help them come out of their shells if they're looking for those types of experiences, but also from a professional perspective within Orange County, there's a lot of nonprofits, a lot of Fortune 500 companies that students find opportunities there. Obviously, there are other universities that have those same connections, but I think the proximity to those places really does help students out, especially if transportation is kind of a big deal for them. There's lots of ways to get to and from Chapman, whether it be by train, by bus, by rideshare. Obviously, that's something that a lot of students use. But even if students wanted to bring cars on campus, that's something that we facilitate starting their very first year. We don't have any restrictions for students that want to do those types of things. I would say something else that's pretty unique. You see it at some other institutions, but the way it's celebrated and really pushed on students is this idea of collaboration. You're going to find your institutions that are very competitive, and some students do thrive in those types of environments, and that's something they look for. But for the students that look for that collaborative environment to where opportunities are kind of abundant for everybody, but also folks are helping each other kind of find those opportunities or potentially advocate for one another to be a part of the same team. That's something that we tout as a Chapman community. That's something that has been consistent since I was a student, and now as a staff member, being able to celebrate and share that message with potential applicants or even admitted students that are trying to figure out, okay, which school is going to be the best place for me, especially for those that need that collaborative environment. That's something that that they really hold on to and really want out of their experience.
Yeah, and I know that, the entertainment industry is right around the corner, and that collaboration is so vital for, the performing arts, and media arts, film, television. Can you tell us a little bit about those programs in particular, and if there are any additional admission requirements for those?
Yeah, so within our Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, there's a wide variety of majors that are offered. The most popular one there is our film and television production program. So this is really geared for students that want to go into either a director role, a cinematography role, or a sound design role. So really getting into the process of production and being um, part of that portion of the team. We also offer a writing for film and television program. So for students want to go more into the screenwriting aspect of film. We have a creative producing program for students that want to be executive producers one day. So there's a variety of majors that we have that are pretty much um, modeled after very popular roles in the industry. And so that way students can specify, okay, like this is what I want to do as part of this team. So you still have that collaborative element to it, but everyone has their specific role. And so even though like they have that piece, they can see what everyone else is doing. And the classes that you're taking are kind of a mashup of things that you will be focusing on, but also things that you should be well aware of that everyone else is doing. So that way you can understand how this well-oiled machine works. And so that way you are understanding whether it be a large studio or a company that you're working for in the future, or maybe it's a startup of your very own. Everyone knows what is needed as part of that. So while the programs themselves are very popular as far as applicants, we keep them fairly small for that same reason of students wanting to get that hands-on learning with professors who are also career uh, have had careers within the industry either currently or are retired and are now just teaching. So I would say a lot of students do enjoy those programs. The same goes with the performing arts. You have folks who are well versed within the industry, whether they are still a part of it as instructors or as company owners or even as performers still. You see that with students and how they're getting that experience as well.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, I had a student from the East Bay who was a dancer, and there's a fairly strong dance community in the East Bay in La Miranda, actually, and so she applied to Chapman, she went to Chapman, and when I looked at your website, I saw something I never see, which was, I think, four dance concentrations or majors. And I'm not sure if there are dancers out there, but it's something that perhaps viewers after the webinar might be interested in. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the performing arts, looking at dance, it's a little different than what you would see at a traditional conservatory that focuses on ballet, very traditional forms of dance. Chapman's curriculum is geared on so many different types of dance, whether it be more tap related, whether it be more contemporary. So students are kind of getting a mixture, a dynamic curriculum within that space. The same goes for screen acting and theater. So students that are wanting to be well versed in a variety of performing styles, they're gonna get it on our campus. And I also realized on the previous question, kind of going into some of the additional elements as to what students are submitting as part of their application. This also gives us an idea as to what their exposure is to all these different types of um, of dance or form of performing arts. So for something performing arts related, that's probably going to be a pre-screen audition that will ask a variety of different performances. If you're looking at something theater related, there's going to be different types of monologues that we'll ask students to complete. If it's something more dance geared, it could be based off of performances they've done in the past, or maybe choreography that they've been developing themselves. So things like that are really a part of our application. So that we know once they are on campus, how does this all translate once they're in the classroom or once they're collaborating with other students?
That sounds great. I mean, it is an amazingly robust department, and I hope I hope the viewers can check that out. And also, I've had students in the past, and I currently do have some students who are, they're interested in music, they're composing it on their own, they're sort of figuring out, what to do with it, how to collaborate with, larger communities. And I know that, the music, sort of the technical part of music is something that lots of students are entering. I'd love to know more about that if you can give us some outline.
Yeah, absolutely. So our music program is a conservatory style program, whether that be students going into composition or performance or electroacoustic music. There's a few different elements of music that students can study. Me personally, when I was a student there, I focused more on the technology side. So music technology is a minor as opposed to a full-on program, but it's available to all students. You don't have to be a part of the music school to get that experience. So what I did was a lot of audio mixing. When it came to recording, being able to look or to listen to those recordings and elevate them or make master mixes to the point of perfection. And these same mixes performers would use for auditions. So if they were sending an audition tape to an orchestra or to an ensemble or to a group that they wanted to be a part of, they would use those things. So even as a minor, I was able to get those types of experiences. But as far as our majors and what they're doing, especially for those looking at the performing side of things, they're going on to perform with groups such as the LA Philharmonic. They're performing with orchestras that have contracts with the Segerstrom Performing Arts Center, and then even our own Performing Arts Center as well. So they're getting that experience, whether it's student productions or if they're looking at things already for their career. So those are some pretty awesome things that our music school is doing. Even with the faculty members that are a part of it, they'll have personal projects that they want students to be a part of too. So students are finding those opportunities, whether it's individual or and more in a group setting.
So let's talk a little bit about academics. Research is something that I know it seems to be over the last 4 or 5 years that trend of students coming into a university with some experience in the research areas. Science, STEM seems to be important these days. What about Chapman in terms of research experience, and also if you want to just give us a kind of an overview of the sciences and the STEM opportunities, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of start with what we offer and then how does that translate into the admission process and how we review those types of students. So our offerings will range from physical sciences, if you're looking at programs within physics, within biochemistry, molecular biology. It works its way into the life sciences. For students that want to go into medical school, those students are often looking at health sciences, biological sciences, chemistry, really depending on which portion of medicine they want to go into. So we have advisors that will help students figure that out. Let's say they come in for one major and then realize there's another one that has a much better um, pathway for them to go into grad school or perhaps into a professional position once they've graduated. Chapman even has degree programs that are in PA or in PT. So if students are looking at those particular professions, they can pursue that as well. But as uh, undergraduate students, research is a very big part of all of those curriculums, regardless of which science program they enroll in. And this is introduced through what we call Grand Challenge initiatives. So these particular classes are required for all STEM students, specifically within our Schmidt College of Science and Technology and our Fowler School of Engineering. Are required to complete it. It's a series of 3 semesters where they are in a group and are doing research with their peers, and they're kind of looking at the intricacies of the research process. So not even just being in a laboratory, but learning how to create a write-up that you're putting together for research funding. How do you send that to organizations, to the government, um, making sure that they understand what that process looks like, deadlines. So they're understanding not only the experience itself, but what else goes into it. Because it's not just always going to be that some one person isn't always going to be involved in asking for the funding or presenting in front of their peers or in front of professionals or leaders in the industry. So they learn all those things. And so how this kind of translates into what we expect from applicants, it's not so much that we want them to have the experience already. It's more so that we want them to have that curiosity. So if they have the experience, that's awesome. We love that they've really gone out of their way and they have those opportunities to participate in those types of things. But it's not an expectation for our students, especially with us wanting to promote that accessibility to Chapman's programs. Whether you're a student that is super interested and has done all forms of involvement with their major, or if this is a student that's just discovering it for the first time. We want all those students on campus, so that way they're coming from a variety of different experiences, and it just makes our programs that much more fun, I would say.
So it's so the collaboration part sounds great. You've got so many opportunities in the health sciences, performing arts. Um, is there I probably not, but is there a core curriculum? How do students who are welcomed, of course, and who really don't know what it is they'd like to do, what kinds of sort of requirements or things that they are encouraged to do in terms of looking around and having experiences outside of what they think they know or think they are interested in?
Yeah. So as far as like a core curriculum, especially for our undeclared students that are wanting or not necessarily sure what they want to do, but want the chance to explore, that's something we facilitate. So with us being a comprehensive university, we don't always expect students to know what they want to do. In most cases, they are 17 years old and applying to colleges. It's kind of hard for us to have that expectation of teenagers to already know what they would like to do. Some students will apply for a specific major, and within their first semester, they are changing it to something that's completely opposite of what they first declared. So while we do have all these specialties and students can really dive deep into their major of choice, we also make it simple for them to move around. Now, there are some caveats to that. There are certain majors where we would like for them to already have that idea and apply directly into it. This is really for certain programs within our film schools, specifically film and television production. And then within our performing arts, dance, screen acting, and theater performance, we really do want those students applying directly into the majors. But anything outside of that, um, it's very much open to exploration. We have some students switching into those majors once they're already at Chapman, um, maybe going into some of the minors there. So, on average, usually by the first semester of the student's second year, they are switching into a major. Whether they stick to that major, I don't have that stat off the top of my head, but the fact that they still have an opportunity to change, even though they've already switched once, they can still do it again. And we've had students who've changed their majors two, three times and still graduate in 4 years. So that's more of a testament to the advising that they're getting, making sure that they're still completing classes that are contributing towards graduation, whether it may or may not be part of the major that they are in at that moment. So a lot of exploration opportunities for students, even in the housing aspect of it. Undeclared students are all housed together. Now, they're all going to have some pretty different interests, but because they're housed together, they can bounce those interests off one another. And those students that are maybe living across the hallway now have exposure to something that maybe they didn't think of before. So it's created a lot of great community for those students, and has really paved the way for them to be successful in their later years.
I just want to make a shout out to the audience out there. If you have any questions, please, feel free to, put them in the chat. If you have, areas where you're personally interested that we have not or will not cover. So I welcome that. So student life, you've got lots of kids in a beautiful campus. Sounds like the housing opportunities are great. And and one question about that is, are freshmen given priority for housing and dorms? So let's jump into that.
Yeah, so as far as our housing process, all incoming first year students, so high school students applying and are admitted and choose to enroll, they're all guaranteed housing in their first 3 years, actually. So we have a 3 year open housing. It's also required for students not living within a local distance to Chapman. So we kind of make that a really integral part of the student experience. The first year is more focused on a student finding their community, starting within their major. And then after that, they kind of start um, finding additional members of their community in their own way. So first year, they will within each of their halls and their rooms, they're assigned by the college that their major is a part of. So let's say a student enrolled in our business program will be paired with other students in business or economics or in accounting. And the same will work for their hallmates, folks who live next to them, across from them. So they'll have an opportunity to connect with people of like minded interests. However, the floors above and below them, depending on where they're staying, those could have different majors and colleges living there. So they're not always going to be sheltered based off of what they're studying. They're still going to be exposed to different disciplines because they still have to declare a minor before they graduate Chapman. Or maybe they're looking at a graduate program that is more a completely different discipline, but they're looking at this particular major now for an undergraduate experience. So every student's different. But the housing piece in the first year is very important as to how they continue into their last 3 years. Uh, Overall, about 93% of our first year cohort lives on campus. The remainder are in a commuting distance and are able to uh, go from home to Chapman and back. So as we kind of go into the second and third year, this moves into apartment style living. So these will be with folks that they've already met, have created a strong connection with, and know that they could live well with each other. And so they will move into one of our either on campus or off campus apartments. We have locations in both spots. The furthest apartment complex for us is probably about 5 to 10 minutes away, but we do have shuttles that take students to and from. So in case they don't have any type of transportation, they're not going to be stranded. They will have ways to get to and from their apartment. Um, but that's a little bit about the housing experience. Kind of going into the eating part of the housing experience, we do have one main dining hall that all students will utilize. But what's really great about the Randall Dining Commons, it's meant to be customizable. Students will walk in and it's kind of a all you can eat, ranging from different styles of cuisine. We'll even have TVs up on top for students to see what ingredients are included in there. So especially if they have certain allergies, especially food allergies to gluten, that's something that we're starting to see a bit more of with incoming students. So they'll get to see that that's part of it. If they do want the same dish, but just without that specific ingredient, all the chefs are very open to recreating the dish so that way the student can still enjoy it, but also still keeping their health in mind. So that's something that students are really able to do. If they don't want to be in the dining commons, there are several other restaurants that they could use Chapman currency. So when a student gets a housing or a meal plan, they also get on-campus currency that they could use at some of those restaurants, or most of those restaurants, I should say. Uh, and then they're able to eat there if they don't want anything in the cafeteria.
The creative part of Chapman sounds fantastic. The housing, the dining options. There's a lot of kids up here in NorCal, especially in the East Bay, who are into, athletics. Can you give us a kind of a flavor of what goes on the field?
Yeah. So, contrary to a lot of schools our size, we're actually a Division 3 university. Other schools our size are around the D2, D1 size. But it's designed that way. We were originally D2, but our athletics department and the university years ago decided that it would be best to move to a Division 3 athletics program. So that way, the money that was previously used for athletic scholarships can actually just be invested back into the teams themselves. So this went to the construction of brand new facilities for athletes to use. This brought in funding for our Wilson Fields, so for all of our field sports that get to use this really nice stadium for competitions or for games. So that's available to students. This contributed to the aquatic stadium for our aquatic sports for swimming and diving, and then water polo. So that money just really made the experience for our athletes so much better. And so when they take tours and they come to visit campus, they see like, wow, like I have a really solid facility to train in and to compete in. And so regardless of whether they're getting athletic scholarships or not, students on Chapman's campus are really getting that potentially D2, D1 experience, just more so at a much calmer level. So obviously, students competing at D3 are still required to attend practices in season and off season, but there is much more of a emphasis of being a student first than an athlete first. The coaches are all in an understanding that their academics come first. They need to keep up a specific GPA. You'll even see most of our sports teams on their website. They will post average GPAs for their entire team, just to show incoming and prospective students that, hey, while you are coming here to compete at a collegiate level, it is still expected of you to do well academically, or else you probably won't be able to participate in these.
Mhm. Yeah, I was looking for photographs, of Chapman for our production tonight, and I came across the field that you're talking about, the stadium, and it looks like UCLA or a real D1 Southern Cal, collegiate experience. I was really impressed, and I can see how diverted those funds to make this sort of a pre-professional experience with the facility. So looks really great. There's a ton of swimmers, as you may know, from the East Bay, and water polo is a huge thing, swimming, all that. So that's good for those for those kids to remember that about Chapman. Um, so Carlos, can you tell us a little bit about, just about the kind of the admission process, your Common App, I know, and maybe what kinds of things those students who are planning to apply, what it is they can do other than just be themselves, to attract your attention and your counselor's attention at Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, our admission process is meant to be as simple as possible. It all starts with the Common App. You'll fill out an account, or you'll create an account and then start filling that out. Start adding colleges that you're looking to apply to. I actually recommend for students in their junior year to create Common App accounts so they can get an idea for what the universities that they'll be applying to the following year, what they're asking. So you can start getting an idea of what type of research you should start doing. So that's something I always suggest to students. Yes, we would love to see what you're all about in your application. And really, this is the time for you to tout about all of your accomplishments, all the things that you love. In addition to that, this is the perfect time to let us know what you know about us and what you want out of your experience. So whether that be looking into the academic program that you're wanting to go into, letting us know of what resources and opportunities that we have that you want to be a part of. There's this idea of Chapman Fit. Is this something that we talk about in our student presentations after the tours every day that we do? And it's not so much a mold that Chapman has put together and we want students to fill it. It's more so how does Chapman give the student the experience they want? So the common example I use is let's say a student is looking into our sciences and is really doing their work on research. He's like, oh, like I see I could do cancer research with Dr. Basafi. I want to be a part of something like that. Oh, I see you offer a specific emphasis going more towards into medicine. I want to do something like this. So the more a student can show us that they've done the research and they know what their experience is going to be like on campus. Obviously, we don't expect them to know everything that they want to do. Those are things that they will add on as they progress. But as far as we can see that they've done their due diligence in researching what we offer, that shows us that they're giving us that extra thought. And perhaps this is a student that if we offer admission, they will come and they will not only make a difference for themselves, but a difference for our community. So that's something that we seek all throughout the application review. Um, this idea of SAPI, I'm not sure if you are familiar with it or have heard it from other Chapman presentations, but it stands for, it's SAPPE is the acronym, and it stands for self-advocacy, authenticity, perseverance, potential, and empathy. These are key traits that we see in almost every single Chapman student, and we specifically look for that in applicants. And that can come in a variety of ways. That can be seen in the letters of recommendation, the personal essay the student submits, their involvement, um, any thing that they include on a college resume. Those are all things that we use to identify those types of attributes in a student. Those attributes are very welcomed on our campus because that's what makes the Chapman community. So that's another thing that we pay attention to in the application.
And so maybe lastly, Carlos, you can kind of give us a rundown of, you know, how can students reach out? Are there info sessions? Are there student panels? I mean, there are lots of ways of doing this, and I'm really glad that you emphasize that kind of getting to know, you know, the college that you're applying to. It's something that I emphasize too, like what exactly is, you know, is really exciting you about applying to this particular school, a professor or a, you know, an internship. Let's name that. And so, yeah, if you could sort of give us a rundown, maybe for the next, you know, coming year, where can students go? Are there college fairs or school visits that they can look for?
Yeah, I mean, we're always on the road as it seems nowadays. So in the spring, we'll be doing some mostly virtual programming, so students have access to that. Some of it might be admitted student specific, others are open to everybody. So we have prospective information sessions that we will host for about 30 to 45 minutes. It's pretty much a breakdown of what Chapman is, who we were, who we are now, the admission process, all that good stuff. Going into the month of November each year, we have what are called Discover Chapman events. So this is where students can understand and get to know certain departments at Chapman and what they do, what do they help facilitate in the student experience. But there's something for each stage of the student. So prospective students are going to have a ton of exploration, whether it be virtual events or in person. Most of the time, it's just going to be a campus visit. I always recommend for prospective students to visit sometime in the fall. They can come over the summer, but there's not a ton of students there. We always encourage the time when students are there so they can see how they interact. They can see what that overall energy will feel like to them. Moving into probably the winter months of like January, February, and early March, this is where students begin to receive their admission decision. For those students that are admitted, can start taking advantage of things like our admitted student experience, where it starts with the panel and then transitions into a tour. We have Panther for a day, where students are getting to be a Panther for a day, getting to go on a tour with other students and only students. There will be meetings that they can coordinate with department chairs and ask additional questions in that regard. And then as we kind of move into the spring months, we start doing some spring yield receptions. So we'll meet with admitted students where they are at. So for Bay Area folks, we're going to be having two different sessions that are probably going to be around April. We'll send you the specifics as far as the dates and times. So definitely keep an eye out on any messaging for any admitted students or families that are with us today or that you work with, Liz. Um, but there's something for every type of student, and we're
Mhm.
we're always looking for new ways to adapt and make sure that we are connecting with every student that we can. So we always encourage students to reach out to us and let us know, hey, like here's an opportunity for you all to get to know us in the region, and we take those to heart. We really listen and want to make sure that we're giving all of those the thought that they need.
So here's another question. What about intramurals, fun things for kids to, mix it up with each other and maybe have some sports on those beautiful facilities that you have?
Yeah, I mean, as far as intramurals work for us, it's very laid back. It's usually something that's once or twice a week that students can be a part of. I personally was a part of our Ultimate Frisbee intramural. Very fun. I probably could not throw a frisbee to save my life if you asked me to today, but I made a lot of really fun friends during that time. But even if it's not intramurals, if it's something just more of a club or an org that a student wants to join, this idea of finding folks and getting out of your comfort zone is something that all Chapman students will come to. That's a crossroads that everyone has to bridge, and it's something we actually help facilitate during orientation. So that first week, prior to the first week of school, we have orientation where students get to know each other, and there's a ton of icebreakers, a lot of activities that will kind of force students to get out of their comfort zone, but start to realize, hey, like I like being in this space. And those are kind of the students that really thrive on our campus, that are not afraid to take risks. Maybe they need a little bit of hand holding to get to that point, but they will get to that point.
So, we've got a few more minutes. If the audience would like to, ask any final questions, and perhaps while they're thinking about that, Carlos, if you want to shout out your email address or a good admissions phone number, this is a good time to do that.
Yes, so I will actually type it out. Hopefully everyone can see it. So this is our general inbox. Feel free to reach out to us there. It's admit,
Hmm.
ADMIT at chapman.edu. And
So that,
then
so that, sorry,
I
so
work
that's,
with students.
sorry, so that's in the chat, right? At admit@chapman.edu. Yeah, great.
Yes. Yeah. So that's our main one. If you want to just ask general questions, or if you want to get in contact with a counselor, you with your specific counselor, you can reach out there. For any folks that are joining from the East Bay or potentially northern, like far north California, I will likely be your admission counselor. So that's my specific email address. It's just carlosl@chapman.edu. Feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to connect with you about the admission process. Or if you're already thinking about joining us and have been admitted, we are happy to help out there too.
Great, great. So that's it for today. Carlos, thank you again for appearing. And I know you're suffering from allergies, and I really appreciate, you're coming in and letting our viewers and our folks up here in this area know all about Chapman. And it's a fantastic opportunity. And I really hope that lots of kids around here in this area will be applying, and I'll be right behind them, and anything I can do to help out with that, I'm happy to do so. So thanks everybody for coming. If there's no other questions, we'll say goodbye for now. Liz Laporte from Porte Education Advising. This has been another edition of Inside Admissions. So thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.